I've given it a couple of weeks. It's time to talk about Multiverse of Madness. This might just be the most polarizing MCU movie we've had in a couple of years. I've had the opportunity to see the movie twice, and every single time that I leave the theater, I get more confused and more conflicted. Because do I think this is the best Marvel movie of all time? No. But is it the horrible, misconstrued abomination that people on Twitter make it out to be? Also, no. If you still haven't seen the movie, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is manage your expectations. And that is exactly where this review should start. And again, spoilers ahead. The marketing for this film was absolutely a doozy. It set up a multiversal reunion of over 20 years of storytelling across multiple franchises. And the rumors on the internet surrounding the cameos that were going to show up, dear God, it was incessant for weeks. People were thinking we were gonna see the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, everybody from every single franchise, every single movie that have come before. And of course, if you've experienced the multiverse, you know that that is exactly the opposite of what happens. If I were to describe this movie within a sentence, it's dipping our toe into the concept of the multiverse. As a general premise, we knew that Wanda was going to be the main antagonist for the film. Before we saw it, we didn't know how, but that was the main point of emphasis across the trailers. With Mommy Maximoff stating that she is being let out to be the villain of the story, where Doctor Strange can use his powers to affect the entirety of the multiverse and nobody bats an eye. Of course, she's referring to the events that happen in Spider-Man No Way Home, where there are consequences, but they're mostly centered around Peter Parker, not Doctor Strange. Whereas everything that we saw in Westview over those 9 episodes in WandaVision tend to be fully thrusted on her shoulders. Perceived as an emotional, psychopathic villain who can't constrain herself and can't grieve properly without affecting everybody else. And obviously during the trailers, she says this.
You break the rules. Look out! I become a hero. I do it, I become the enemy. It doesn't seem fair.
Honestly, if we're keeping it a stack, she is correct. It is not fair. But the way that Sam Raimi put her vengeance on a swivel, it was absolutely out of proportion. Let's start off with the positives for the film. To me, the most compelling thing that stood out from the actual cinematic experience were the horror elements. Sam Raimi is a veteran in both camps, both in the horror genre and superhero films. In case you were living under a rock, he's the one that directed the original Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire. With Spider-Man 1 being one of the best origin stories of all time, and Spider-Man 2 being one of the best superhero sequels of all time as well. His hands are placed all over this film. The transitions, the soundtrack, the score, the visuals, the absolutely amazing references to other horror classics. We saw hints to Evil Dead, to The Ring, The Terminator, The Shining. Everything was just beautifully and meticulously placed to keep you in a horror vibe within a superhero movie, which is completely new territory, especially for a Marvel film. Scratch that, especially for a Marvel film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's not excessively gory or bloody, but it has those elements intertwined in, and it actually made me want to see Sam Raimi direct other MCU projects in the future. Si me tuviese que dar un top 5, I would easily have him do Ghost Rider or Blade or something related to the supernatural or the occult. So again, to summarize, the score, the cinematography, and the directing is actually pristine. The main issue that people seem to have is with a little bit of the pacing and obviously the story. In some of those cases, I tend to agree. From the jump, we see America Chavez and a different version of Doctor Strange try to escape some demons that are working to try to steal her powers away from her. As an introduction, we are basically led to believe that America Chavez is a super powerful being that can travel across the multiverse. Obviously, those powers are really valuable, and so we have a ton of parademons and even Gargantos trying to strip her of her power. Or at least they're working for somebody that needs that power to begin with. Through the various versions of Doctor Strange that we meet across the multiverse, the MCU doubles down on the fact that Doctor Strange is not necessarily a good person in every universe. As a matter of fact, Defender Strange and a couple of other versions are exactly the same way as he is in the comics, which is pompous, egotistical, and not necessarily in it for the gain of everybody, but just himself. Or at least trying to help other people with the guise that it's for them, whereas he's just trying to survive the ordeal. As we see from the first 30 minutes of the movie, that is not going to be peaches and cream, because the demons are no joke. They are trying to get America for every means necessary. And Defender Strange is gone, straight out the window. What follows is the true crux of the argument, because Doctor Strange saying, hey, there's a lot of witchcraft in this scene. I need to know if Wanda is able to help because she's encountered it before in Westview. Bada boom, bada bing, the hero meets the villain. Wanda is hell-bent on a singular mission from the very beginning. She wants to go into a universe where her children are alive so she can experience motherhood. And Doctor Strange poses a very important question. What happens when you take care of the Wanda in that universe? And the thing is, she doesn't care. The Darkhold has taken a hold of her mind. And that is exactly the same motivation or the MacGuffin story-wise that people are kind of upset with. The Darkhold is very obviously a very powerful magical artifact, and as we have seen both from What If and from the ending of this film, it affects the user and the person who reads it. Even if you don't make direct contact or use the spells within its pages, it will definitely have a psychological effect on you. And in the case of Wanda Maximoff, she's been desensitized to any sort of empathy. She is focused on the goal and everybody has to step the fuck out of her way. It's not ideal, but it's acceptable. The issue is how that is escalated across the entire film. Because remember, we were sold a multiversal team up with the Illuminati and references to the X-Men because we had already seen Professor X. We were wondering, who were the other members of the Illuminati and which other universes are we going to visit? The reality is that the universes that we do visit, we are in there for roughly less than 5 to 10 seconds each. There's a paint universe, a very cyberpunk-esque universe, a noir universe. It's a great experience in terms of visual and auditory storytelling, but it is nothing near the level of scope and scale that we saw, for example, from the first Doctor Strange movie. That scene where Doctor Strange is thrusted across the entire multiverse by the Sorcerer Supreme, or in this case, the Ancient One, is absolutely mind-boggling because we know the possibilities. We don't even know who could be lurking outside in those mirrors to other dimensions. In this case, it's more of a you're in, you're out scenario. But Wanda is absolutely ruthless. The horror elements surrounding her arrival at Kamartaj are some of the best that I've seen in an MCU movie. She's meticulous, cunning, threatening, and she has no quarrels with sending people to the Shadow Realm quick, fast, and in a hurry. Her body count eclipses 20 just within the first 3 or 4 minutes into the Kamartaj scene. And it was actually a pretty pleasant experience seeing something so sinister and dreadful come from somebody that had lived such a beautiful life beforehand, at least within the context of her imaginary life in Westview. This is where we are introduced to the concept of dreamwalking, because obviously Doctor Strange and America Chavez are able to elude capture by using multiversal travel. Essentially, dreamwalking is set up as the biggest violation of natural law within this universe. Essentially, through the pages of the Darkhold, there is a spell that you can use to travel within the multiverse to possess the body of another version of yourself in that specific universe. So, spoiler alert, it's confirmed that we are living in Earth 616, which is the main continuity from the comics. And Wanda has to go to Universe 838 in order to follow Doctor Strange while they're looking for an answer to how to stop Wanda. So, while there may only be one Scarlet Witch across the entire multiverse, aka making her a Nexus being, there are an infinite number of Wanda Maximoffs, and she has to dreamwalk in order to possess 838 Wanda in order to, you know, oversee her deeds. She's limited in the amount of power that she has because obviously it's not the Scarlet Witch's body, but she's still a menace to society. And from that goes the greatest conundrum of the series, meeting the Illuminati. Again, if you haven't seen the movie at this point, I should let you know, reiterated, en mi hermano, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Because it is at this point that we see that Doctor Strange has been captured and is being judged by the Illuminati, who is led by a less than friendly version of Mordo. He's friendlier than 616 Mordo, but still, he's pretty much a pompous prick. And he introduces the long-awaited debut of the Illuminati into the MCU. It's not the same lineup as the comics, but still, it's pretty badass. We have Baron Mordo, portrayed by Chiwetel Ejiofor, Hayley Atwell portraying the part of Captain Carter, the one and only Patrick Stewart portraying Charles Xavier from the X-Men, which is one of the main cameos that we wanted to see. Then we got Lashana Lynch playing Captain Marvel. And then boom, the two biggest surprises. We got Anson Mount reprising his role as Black Bolt, and the cameo that we had all been waiting for and rooting for, John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, the leader of the Fantastic Four. This was probably the best moment in the entire film when you got everybody screaming for these two to finally show up. But the scene that follows is actually pretty heartbreaking because as Benedict Wong and Wanda are trying to figure out the mysteries of WandaCore, where essentially the Scarlet Witch has her throne and is basically going to control the universe or destroy it, she ends up going to the Illuminati's headquarters and she turns everybody into whack. Not literally, but she waxes the floor with every single one of them. Nobody even remotely stands a semblance of a chance against this Terminator-style Wanda Maximoff. In a moment of true hubris, in the only way that Reed Richards could know how, he literally tells Wanda, hey yo, you see this dude Black Bolt? One whisper and he will completely erase you from existence. And she's like, with what mouth? From that moment, I knew everybody was gonna end up in the Shadow Realm 6 feet under. But essentially, yeah, she turns Mr. Fantastic into string cheese. Black Bolt's head basically becomes a exploded watermelon. Captain Carter is literally chopped in half, and then you have Captain Marvel, who basically just has one fight with like 30 seconds where they're actually trying to compare powers, and boom, she gets destroyed by a statue falling on her. Explain, America, what is happening? Even Professor X, who's been canonically able to stop the Phoenix Force in the comics, doesn't even stand a chance 20 seconds with her in his mind-altering thingamajig. Basically, Professor X is able to use his power to gain access into Wanda's mind to try to take out 838 Wanda from the clutches of 616 Scarlet Witch. And it is at this moment that zombie Wanda, or like the scary Darkhold version of the Scarlet Witch, literally snaps his neck into a billion pieces. It was brutal, the horror elements were great, but nobody at the theater liked that. Or at least the people that I went to see it with. Here is where we have to draw the line in terms of the story. It is perfectly okay, in my opinion, to power scale Wanda to have her be one of the most powerful villains in the MCU. We already knew that. She can basically create people at will based on her power. But if the marketing of the movie is setting up this to be the introduction to the X-Men in the MCU in live action, and the Fantastic Four with Reed Richards, why would you have her destroy everybody in less than 5 minutes of screen time? Captain Carter gets easily like, what, 5-10 lines of dialogue? Even Captain Marvel, who's supposed to be one of the strongest beings in the universe, and in this case, canonically within the MCU, has almost soloed Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. She is basically fodder. The thing that I would have liked to see, this is how I would have solved it. I would have had Wanda destroy one or two of the most powerful variants that we would have seen in the entire MCU. Put it Thor, be it Superior Iron Man, heck, you could even have another version of Professor X or Reed Richards. Just have her destroy them, and then you have this Illuminati being like, look, Wanda, we don't want any quarrel with you. We just need to negotiate in order to make sure that this helps you hurt the least amount of people. It would make sense for the Illuminati to try to negotiate with Wanda instead of going headfirst into the wall. I would have loved to see Wanda try to manipulate and try to be as intimidating as possible to these larger-than-life powerful beings, and then be like, you know what? I'm gonna take what I want, and if you decide to stop me, I'm gonna put you on the ground. But she came in, no holds barred, took everybody down to dinner and the Shadow Realm. It just felt disingenuous. This was clearly supposed to be a Doctor Strange versus Wanda battle, and it actually detracted from the main character of the film, at least to me, because the main emotional and plot-driven linchpin of this film is America Chavez. And unfortunately, she's basically turned into a MacGuffin, with her powers being the ultimate prize, allowing the user to travel across the multiverse. That is exactly what 616 Wanda wants to do. She wants to travel to another universe, get her children, bada bing, bada boom. Don't get it twisted, however. Xochitl Gomez does an amazing job with the script that she is given. And that scene where she ends up acknowledging who she is and embracing her powers literally had me crying. But there was no sense of urgency to try to make her a main plot point of the movie. She was just there as the auxiliary plot point for Wanda and Doctor Strange to fight for. With that being said, the acting performances from everybody in the show, Elizabeth Olsen, Benedict Cumberbatch, Xochitl Gomez, everybody on the acting department does an amazing job. I don't have any gripes there. But again, the story is just conflictive, and it'll have people talking for the coming months, at least until Thor Love and Thunder comes to theaters. The thing is, at the end of the movie, there's no real cathartic or logical conclusion, because the Scarlet Witch that we know, Wanda from Earth 616, ends up sacrificing herself after she realizes, oh, maybe I shouldn't have killed half the people in Kamartaj and the people in the Illuminati, just to realize that my children will have a beautiful life in the other universes. I will have to grieve in my own way, but I don't have to kill another version of me in order to have a fulfilling life. And trust me, it's not explained like that. It's just explained in a single sentence, where we have 838 Wanda, who's been possessed for the past 2 hours, saying, don't worry, know that they will be loved. You know, the story is conflictive when I feel more empathy towards this alternate version of Wanda Maximoff than the main timeline Scarlet Witch. If I was her, I'd be like, oh my god, who is this bitch coming straight across the multiverse trying to take my kids and my powers? This is not who I am, mi hermana. Just grieve and take your time to do so. I personally think that this was a great movie with a couple of story flaws that definitely needed a second look. Is it the worst movie in the MCU? Again, no. But I feel like there should have been a little bit more emphasis on making this story a bit more compelling. I know there's a lot of Wanda stands across the multiverse that are gonna be like, oh no, what the fuck are you saying? You're just mad because she's super powerful. We already knew that Wanda was powerful. That is not the issue. But establishing her as an uncontrollable villain and then neglecting everything that happened in WandaVision and within the same story to just be like, okay, I'm gonna sacrifice myself and goodbye to everybody. It just doesn't make sense, or at least it doesn't land well in my eyes. With that being said, this is a great introduction into the multiverse, and it is basically setting up the process of Secret Wars, where you have variants of alternate universes converging in different realities that are not their own, and spending too much time in those alternate realities could cause an incursion. An incursion, explained by the beautiful Mr. Reed before he turns into sashimi, is the collision of multiple universes that concludes in the destruction of one or both of those universes. Again, universe hopping for a long time, big no-no. I want to see where this can lead us, and I want to know what other characters can show up and what other connections can be made across different franchises and different universes, but it can't just be for cameos or for the sake of power scaling people. The next Marvel project that we have is Thor: Love and Thunder, which promises to have a lot of universal travels by themselves. We're gonna get to see Jane Foster, we're gonna get to see the Greek gods, and we're gonna get to see Gore the God Butcher, who travels across the multiverse to destroy all deities. I'm not sure how they're gonna connect that film to this one, but we'll just have to wait and see. I do feel like that in order to fully grasp the scope of what they were trying to achieve, this is one of the movies that has the most amount of previous knowledge that you need to have in order to fully enjoy the experience. So if you haven't seen it, go watch WandaVision, What If, Loki, and obviously Spider-Man No Way Home. To summarize, the score, the directing, the horror elements, the visuals, and the cinematography are all pros, but the story and the pacing leave a little bit to be desired. Overall, after 2 viewings, I would still give this like a 6 or a 6.5 out of 10. It was enjoyable to experience, but obviously, it just didn't hit the right spot. At least for me. Con todo y eso, mi familia, there's still a lot of Marvel projects that we have to cover from now until the end of the year. So make sure that you hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and make sure you subscribe with the notifications bells on so you get an instant noti every time that I post a video or whenever I go live. Speaking about going live, I have a new challenge that I'm trying to do with this channel. I will be streaming as I usually do here, but I will be delisting the VODs and putting them on my brand new channel, Tropical Joe VODs. That one will have all of the full-length streams ready for your enjoyment and viewing pleasure. But I have also created a second page for all the gaming content that you know and love. Reviews, gameplay, news, everything under the sun related to gaming will live on Tropical Joe Gaming. So I have 3 channels and all of them are free for you. So make sure you go check them out, hit that like button, and subscribe to all of them because it really helps me out and it really helps me establish what you want to see, and obviously it's a little bit more fun to have other avenues to cover content on. Again, thank you so much for the support. If you want to support the channel a little bit further, there's also memberships, channel memberships, which are basically monthly subscriptions that you can access in order to have specific perks for my channel. There's multiple different tiers, which my amazing editor will show you as I am talking to you, but essentially choose the one that fits your budget. And again, it's not mandatory. It just helps me, well, pay my bills. And in this case, the main goal of the subscriptions is to get a camera because right now I am recording on my phone and I feel like you deserve a little bit more. So without further ado, as always, make sure to crack a smile just right the wave, and I'll see you on the next one. Blah!